Hello there and welcome to this webinar from Centtrip. My name is Dicken and I am Head of User Experience here at Centtrip. And today I'm going to be taking you on a journey through our Centtrip Global platform, particularly focusing on user management. We're going to be looking at setting user access, setting permissions, and managing exactly which accounts and companies a user can have access to and what can they do there. We're going to start today, we're going to look at accounts and companies within Centtrip. It's really useful to be able to understand the hierarchy of how data is structured in order to then be able to manage exactly where a user can access. We're then going to look at what user access is, how it works. We'll then be looking at creating new users and new roles for those users within Centtrip. And the example we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be setting spending limits and payment approvals for users. Classic use case that'll give us a good grasp on exactly how to manage that kind of user access. We'll then be looking at different permissions in different accounts. And then also we're going to look at how you can add the same user to multiple companies within Centtrip. So, to begin, let's start with a little refresher on exactly how company data is structured within Centtrip. So your business in Centtrip is called a corporate, and you'll see that referred to within the platform. And a corporate is essentially a self-contained, sort of ring-fenced sort of financial entity within Centtrip. But a corporate can contain one or more operating accounts. So maybe just have a single account, you maybe have multiple accounts, but the accounts are what hold the funds, and the different currency wallets. They're also what you create cards within. So the operating account is sort of where the day-to-day action happens. Looking at that as a diagram, so here's your corporates, and as you'll see in a moment, I've got access to 3 corporates in my example, and each of those corporates has a different number of operating accounts. And today we're going to look at how you can maybe just allow someone access to a specific operating account, or you can give someone access to multiple corporates. Switching over to the Centtrip platform, navigation of the different corporates and accounts is done with this tool up at the top left. So in this, we can select which corporate we want to look at. I've got access to 3 here, as I say. And I can select which one I want. And as you'll see, on the right here is where the different operating accounts within the corporates appear. And if I want to switch operating account, I can just do that very easily from this menu. Good. So let's look at how I can start creating access to my different operating accounts. User access in Centtrip is a combination of 3 things. You've got the user, so that's someone, an email address and password, he logs in. That user will have a set of permissions. Now we call that a role. So when you create a user, you choose what role they want to have. Maybe you could be just a standard administrator, or you can create a custom role for that user. And a role is essentially a whole set of permissions. So you don't just sort of set permissions one at a time, you give them a whole set of permissions by assigning them a role. And then finally, when you're creating the user and giving them access, you need to choose exactly what operating accounts you want them to have access to. So we'll be looking at that as well. The main thing you have to think about when you're adding a user is, are you creating what we call a super user who has access to an entire company, or are you adding just someone who's going to a standard administrator, a standard user, who's just going to go into the different operating accounts and manage the data there? So let's take a little look back in the platform. We're going to go down to users, down at the bottom of the left here. This is where we'll be spending most of our time today. And here you can see that this corporate, Centtrip Training, has got 5 users. And each of those users has got a different role. So there's me, Dicken. I'm a corporate super administrator, and we've got 2 other corporate super administrators here. You'll sometimes hear that referred to as CSA. So we'll take a look at what that means in a moment. Then we've got 1 corporate administrator, not super, just corporate administrator, and then 1 corporate admin read-only. So, what are those roles? Well, we call those system roles. Let's take a look. A system role is a role that comes by default with the platform. So when you first start using Centtrip, you're going to have these roles. You're going to have corporate super administrator, and corporate admin read-only. So your super administrator, or CSA, they're the people that look after a whole corporate. So they're the people who can create new users. That's kind of the main sort of crucial difference. They can create users, but also crucially, they can move money from operating account to operating account. So sort of across the corporate, they can manage money across the corporate. Whereas a corporate administrator, just a standard admin, they can only manage the operating accounts that you give them access to. So they can't sort of manage across different operating accounts. They can still do quite a lot. You can see there they can change currency, they can make payments, they can top up cards, they can even order cards if you enable them to. But what they can't do is move money between accounts. They can't create new users. And then this other one, corporate admin read-only, they are your accountants. They're people, all they can do, they can't change anything. They can just go in, generate statements, pull data from the platform, and review what's happening. So that's our three system roles. Let's take a look at back in the platform. Let's go to the roles tab, and then we can see here all our different system roles, and this is where we can edit them if we want to, and manage them. But we won't do that quite yet. What I want to do then is, remember we talked about a new user as a combination of the user, then the role, then the access. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new user and we're going to give them access to the platform. So to do that, I'm going to click create user. I'm going to give them an email address. We'll call it training.example@harakirimail.com. Okay, that sounds like a weird email address. That Harakiri mail is just a free kind of mailbox that I can use just to generate the verification codes which I need. We're going to call this guy Terry Trainer. Give him a date of birth. Date of birth is important. It gets used whenever you like resetting your password. So it's an important one to know about. We'll just give them a number. It's fine. Let's confirm that. Okay. And now what we need to do is we need to give them a role. So this is kind of an interesting one. We're just going to give them access to our Centtrip training. Now, if I wanted to create them as a corporate super administrator, that means they're looking after the whole corporate, the whole Centtrip training corporate. And if I click next, you'll see there, it basically says you've got access to all the accounts in Centtrip training. Boom, that's that. Whereas if I choose to create them as a corporate administrator, you'll see the next thing it asks is, okay, you're doing that. Which operating accounts do you want them to have access to? So if you want someone to just manage specific accounts, you give them a corporate administrator role, and then you can choose exactly what accounts they can manage. So we're just going to give them access to the Barbary operating account. And we'll confirm that. Confirm that. And now what happens is that user will be sent an email just to welcome them to Centtrip and to ask them to create a username and password. So we're going to do that quickly now. So now I'm going to put on my Terry hat. I'm going to go into my inbox and I've got my email that says, let's get started. I'm going to bring that browser window down so we can just see it on screen here. And this is what Terry is seeing. They're asked to create a password to go with the account. So I'll just get a password now. Great. So that's been done. And now I can go ahead and I can sign in. But before I sign in, I think I need to customize exactly what Terry can do, because I don't just want to give him standard access. I want to actually give him custom permissions. I want to control exactly how much he can pay, and I want to make sure that his payments he makes require approval. Now, in order to do that, I can create a custom role. There's different ways you can do this. I could edit the default corporate administrator role, and I can edit the permissions in there. Or, and this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new custom role. That's just going to be for Terry initially, and that's going to have unique permissions, it's going to have unique spend limits, and it's going to have some other permission set as well. So I'm going to click duplicate. That's going to create how you create a new custom role. And I'm going to select the name. So I'm just going to call it pair 1. And you'll see in a moment we're going to create additional pair roles, but for now we're going to call it pair 1. All right, let's take a look at these permissions here, and let's have a think about what we can actually change. So using the role editor, when you're creating a new custom role, you can edit whether or not they can make payments. You can then edit if their payments need approval and how many approvals they need. You can control whether they have spending limits. You can control whether or not they create recipients. You can control whether or not they can convert currency, and if so, how much can they convert. You can control whether they open order cards, whether they can manage cards, whether they can top up cards, and can they manage users and create users. So there's lots and lots of options there. We're not going to use all of those. What we're going to look at today is, first of all, we want Terry's payments to require approval, and in a sec we'll see how approvals work in the platform. And we want to, he's a fairly junior guy. We don't want him spending any more than 1,000. And because we have the ability to send payments with FX in the platform, we also need to just set the FX limit to 1,000 as well. All right, this is good. So, we'll give, actually, yes, take off that. We don't want them to be able to create recipients. We don't want them to be able to approve payments. We want them to be able to change money. That's fine. Do we want them? Actually, we don't really want them to top up cards. Okay, that's good. Let's save that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to assign that role to Terry. So we're going to go into Terry, we're going to edit him. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that current role assignment. And we're going to give him our new one. So it's in Centtrip training. There it is. There's our new role we just created. Looking good. And again, give him access to the same account. And now that role allocation is done. Fantastic. So, what does it mean then to require approvals? Let's take a look. So, here's Terry. He's our admin. He's got a role of pair 1. He's going to be able to make payments. He's going to be able to submit payments. But we don't want those to go straight out. We are going to require approvals for those. So essentially, it's like putting a wall there, where those payments do not go out initially, but they've been submitted. Now what happens is Julie, in this case, who's our CSA, our corporate super administrator, she gets a notification to say that approval is required. She'll take a look. She'll go into the platform, take a look. We're going to see all that happening soon. And then she will unlock that, approve that payment, so those payments can go off to the recipients. So that's good news. So let's go ahead and see that in action. Actually, before we do that, let's edit the CSA role. Because by default, the CSAs don't have the ability to approve payments. We need to activate that functionality. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the corporate super administrator role. I'm going to tick where it says can approve payments. And that means anyone with the CSA role, and in this case it's 3 users, now have the ability to approve payments. So that's marvelous. That is good. We've got that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sign out of me. And we're going to sign in as Terry. There's my username and password entered. Now I'll just need to verify my ID. Okay, that's done. Right, I am now logged in as Terry Trainer. So what are the differences here? Well, notice here in my navigation, I've only got access to a single operating account. The only got access to the operating account which I've set for him. Right, let's make a payment. We're just going to make a single payment rather than a batch payment. We're going to do batch payments actually in the next seminar. We'll be taking a deep dive into those. So remember the payment limit was 1,000. Let's try doing a payment for 2,000 euros. And immediately we get a warning there telling us that the payment exceeds our payment limit. So that's good. Let's change that to say 800. Let's see if it's happy now. It's happy now. That's great. So we can just put a reference in for that payment. We can just say we're paying an invoice and make that payment. Fantastic. Now, the payment's just been submitted. And if I go to the Manage Payment screen, you'll see here I've got one payment awaiting approval, and that is my payment. Now, of course, I don't have the ability to approve my own payments, though I do have the ability to reject it. If I've made a mistake, I can just cancel it, so it doesn't ever go to the approval stage. But we need to get this payment approved. In order to do that, we're going to log out, take off my Terry hat, and I'm going to log in as a CSA, and our CSA is called Julie. So that's my details entered. I'm now signing in as our CSA, and I'm able to go to payments. There we are. I can go awaiting approval. And there it is. So let's take a look at that payment. Okay, well, that details look interesting. Okay, let's see, where's that payment going to? I can view the batch. Okay, careful, that looks fine. I can look at all the details. I can see the details being used for that payment. You know what? That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to approve that. Great. So, and then we've got the approval details is now part of that payment. So that is fantastic news. We are now going to take a look at some other things we can do to our users. So let's log out as Claire, and we're going to log back in again as me. So we've added Terry to the Barbary account with a limit of 1,000. Let's say we wanted to add him to a different account. Let's say we wanted to add him to, say, the Allerton account. It's a different operating account. But the Allerton account's a bit different because actually it only supports lower payments. And in fact, you can't have any payment higher than 500 from this particular account. But we still want Terry to be able to sign in and make payments, but we want to have a different payment limit. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to show you how it's possible to add the same users to two different accounts and give them a different role in each account. So the way we're going to do this is, actually we need to be in our Barbary, don't we, initially? This is where Terry is. And what we're going to do is, first of all, what we're going to do is going to create a new role. And we're going to take our pair 1 role, we're going to duplicate it, we're going to create a new role, we're going to call it pair 2. And this role is going to be almost identical to the pair 1. That's the advantage of duplication. You can basically just inherit all the details, but we're just going to make this change. We're going to reduce the limit here to 500. And we'll also do that to FX as well. So that's the limit we're adding, we are changing. So people with this role are never going to be able to make more than 500 euros in payment. So we've created that role. What we now need to do is we need to edit Terry. And we're going to edit Terry. And what we're going to do is this role assignment, we're going to leave this one as it is. We'll leave Barbary, with the pair 1 role as it is. What we're going to do is we're going to go to add the payer 2 role. We're going to add that to a different operating account. Notice here I can't add it to the Barbary account, and that's because it's Terry's already in that with a role. You can't have the same user with 2 different roles in the same account. So it's going to add him there to Allerton. That's good. I'm just going to click next. And now he's got 2 roles in 2 different accounts. One role in Barbary and a different role in Allerton. And of course, the only way to test this, well, the best way to test this is to go in again as Terry. Okay, so we're logged in as Terry now, but notice we've now got access to 2 different accounts. We have access to Allerton as well as Barbary. So now, in order to test this, we need to try making a payment of more than 500 from the Allerton account and see what happens. Let's try the same payment we made before. Let's try 800. Let's pick our recipient. And there we are. We get our validation error. So here, it doesn't let us create a payment of more than 500. There we are. So that's how you can have the same user added to different accounts with different permissions in each account. In this case, different spending limits in each account. Now let's zoom out a bit. What if we wanted to add a user, not just to different permissions in different accounts? What if we wanted to add a user to multiple corporates? Let's take a little look at that in PowerPoint, how that might look. So here you've got multiple corporates. We want to add the same user to all these corporates. Now, each of these corporates has got the same system roles. So every one of these corporates will have a role for corporate super administrator, a role for corporate administrator. But then, of course, they may have custom roles. So we've got our custom roles. We've got pair 1 and pair 2 in the corporate. So if you wanted to add a user to multiple corporates, then you have to use one of these system roles. And that's the limitation. If you want to add a user to cross, if you're adding, say, an accountant, and we'll do that now, you would use the corporate admin read-only role in each corporate. Let's take a look at that now. Okay, so now we're back in, logged in as me, and we're looking at our users list again. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this guy. He is Gordon Trainer. He is our accountant. And at the moment, he has the corporate admin read-only role, which means that he just has the ability to generate statements, generate reports. And at the moment, he has only access to one corporate, just got access to this Centtrip training corporate. Now, if you remember, I have got access to multiple corporates, and I would like to give Gordon the same access. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to edit Gordon, and we're going to keep the same role here. So we're going to, rather than like deleting and re-adding it, we can just click edit. But what we want to do, we want to keep the same role, but we want to edit access. And literally all we are doing is we're ticking the corporates that we would like this user to have access to. So we'd like to have access to multiple corporates. Now, the lovely thing is, we can choose exactly what accounts he has access to. So let's say we want him to have access to all the operating accounts within this corporate, but this guy, you know what, we actually don't want him to have access to those. We'll just have access to that main one. And there we are. You see there, here he's got access to selected accounts. The other 2 corporates, he's got access to all accounts. And that's good. That is how you can add a user to multiple businesses very, very quickly and easily. Cool. So that's our session. Thanks so much for joining me today.